Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another very special edition of Down Unders, the day after the aftermath of game number 1 of State of Origin. And of course, I got to bring on the fellow Blue member over here, Mr. Brody Blake. How you going, my bro?
Oh, good, brother. Cannot complain.
I knew you couldn't. So it's going to be an amazing show tonight, guys. Obviously, we're going to be touching on State of Origin, review on the game. I do want to touch on with Brody about his own club as well before we get to the weekend's preview. Then we're finishing with a little bit of a super coach as well. And I do also apologize, guys. I've only just, I'm still kind of going through the flu just a tad. So if I do sound a little bit off, I do apologize. Obviously, you guys already know that I wasn't able to stream earlier on this week. Due to all of this going on. But I'm sure Brody's going to be the halfback as he always is. He'll direct us through the show and do a great job there. So you ready to get into it, brother?
Ready to get into it, brother. And just to recap that as well, we're not going to touch too much on last week. It's mostly just going to be Origin. Last week's last week.
Yeah, buy-around footy is buy-around footy. Let's leave it at that, yeah?
Yeah, there's not too many good points to touch on either, so moving on.
Moving on. But State of Origin last night, my bro, how exciting. It's kicked off a new year of State of Origin here. 18-6, the New South Wales Blues pretty much kick off another new era in a way. The way he's taking over Suncorp Stadium against the Maroons at Suncorp, bro. First of all, I want to get your thoughts overall on the game. Your thoughts on how happy you are as a Blues fan to see this, the changing of the guard in a way of all these years, coming to Suncorp Stadium, it becoming a fortress, but, back-to-back at Suncorp Stadium, you'd be absolutely laughing with both these performances.
Yeah, 100%. Look, the scoreline doesn't really reflect the dominance that was last night, in my opinion. I don't agree with Joey that it would have ended up 40 if New South Wales were on. I mean, if Queensland were on, they could have won the game. That's pretty stupid thing to say. If anyone's on, you're gonna win. So, and Lockie in the
Shout
chat.
out to Lockie in the chat.
No, I thought it was a very, very dominant performance from New South Wales, and the scoreboard didn't reflect that, whether it was a missed goal kicks or a couple of missed opportunities. Just the dominance of Queensland not even really getting much red ball zone. It just showed the dominance that the Blues had in making field position and holding that away from Queensland.
Yeah, and a couple of key areas I want to touch on statistically, in this contest that adds to your point there. New South Wales having 200 runs in this game, 1,700 meters that user ran for, 605 post-contact meters. But the big one here, 49 tackle breaks to 19 of the Maroons. Obviously, that means the Maroons have actually missed 49 tackles in a State of Origin game at Suncorp Stadium, which is close to unheard of. Usually, it's the defensive side of the Maroons. They used to get us home. We used to break your hearts late. And I was early on in the game, I touched on this with you at work as well. 20 minutes in, I was kind of feeling okay. I was like, all right, the contest is, I think it was 0-0. Everything was kind of going, it was 2-0, sorry.
2-0, yeah.
Everything was kind of going I was like, there was a couple of moments with our shape that we're throwing. Wasn't the prettiest shape, but we were stripping you guys in moments too, but you guys are just rolling quite easily. So I could see how this could go either way in this contest. And then it just felt like, out of nowhere, the ascendancy just swung all New South Wales way. As I said, you were rolling through us quite well, but I thought we were defending fairly well. And then just this grunt of Payne Haas just turned his foot to the gas. And then Nathan Cleary, handled the boys around the park really well. And you got players like Zach Lomax, Brian Toto, Latrell Mitchell, Critter. We'll touch on Critter a little bit more later on, but it just, from that point on, even when we got that little added, breath of fresh air of a Simbin before half time, we started to feel like maybe we could get back into this contest. When we're down the end, we just couldn't strike when the iron was hot. And, full credit to the Blues defense. They were unbelievable in this game on both ends of the field, right? Attacking, and defense. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, their line didn't get tested a lot. You're 100% right. They just won the middle battle, that middle part of the field, and Queensland really were always kicking out of trouble. And you're right, the first 20 minutes it was that arm wrestle, and even leading into halftime, I kind of had the nerves that, now that Simbin, this is going to kick Queensland into gear. They're going to get a roll on. And even after the halftime, that 10-minute period, you still didn't make too many meters in those sets. You come up with that lucky try at the end. Not lucky, I'll say, a really good shot. And then the quick hands down the line to Coates. Other than that, your actual good ball zone attack didn't look too great at all. Whether that's really good defense from the Blues or really poor from Queensland or a bit of fatigue, they've been working out of their end all night, and then to finally get down that end and just couldn't quite put it together. What do you put it down to, in your opinion, for Queensland's attack on New South Wales goal line? Do you think that there needs to be a changing of the guard there in the halves, or do you think it's just, the new centre combination of Toya, or do you think they're lacking a strike back row on that left edge?
Yeah, I think there's 2 points there I want to touch on. I thought that Robert Toya, for myself, had a really decent game in this one. Whenever he could get in positions that he could get into, I thought that he could do only what he could have done in those positions, right? I thought Ches looks... he wasn't the director out there, I noticed that everything that was coming off of Munster was trying to get everything going, but the halfback wasn't steering the ship and putting him in the positions to do that. Thought, within that 20 minutes, it looked like Ches had some really nice moments. He went down short sides, he was creating some, openings and that. And then for some reason, he just went completely out of the contest again. And I like a lot of it as well. I would say field position wise, I thought that our forwards didn't do the best of the job, or even our outside backs at times didn't do the best of the job to get us into good field position to make that work in the first half. But we got a lot of good ball in that second half that just looked clunky. Like, it looked like the boys didn't know the points of where they wanted to get to. I would also open it up to, it would be nice to see a nice strike edge back roll on that left-hand side to help out Munster, because that was looking like, probably our better option with our passing game down that edge, where our kicking game all just went down Coates' edge, and when that wasn't really happening, we didn't really have anything else to go about it. But for me, I lay that when we got into the 20, it just felt like there was no direction, felt really, really clunky, and I thought that Ches just went really, really quiet. And it's starting to really open up the food for thought. When Tom Dearden came on, because we probably agree, Harry Grant didn't have his best game either, and the connection between our spine just wasn't there. But when Dearden came on, he played so much more direct. There was that little glimmer of hope with that cutout ball that he threw that ended up being forward. That was probably one of our best attacking shapes we threw on the night. So I'm probably with you of I want to open up the options to revisiting our lineup, looking at that left side edge back row to kind of open up some shape down that side, right? Because Critter was just eating everything down there. And again, we'll touch on him soon. But on the right-hand side, it's whether do we give Ches just another chance to, hey, listen, we understand that. We need you to be better. We need you to take control. We need you to get into the points of the field. Use Jeremiah Nanai, not just as a kicking threat. Use him as a staple on that edge to hit a tram line and open things up. Use moments like that. Or, or we can put Tom Dearden there and see how that goes. Because at least that Dearden's, no matter what, he's got a running threat in him. He's just going to try his ass off. It just, it felt like that we lost Ches after that early 20 minutes. And I can't really put my finger to it. Was it Angus Crichton just getting over the top of him on that edge that kind of put him out of the game? I'm not sure. It's just, for me, he felt completely out of the game.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of your points there. It's hard to say that Dearden would have been any different than Cherry Evans in that role last night. He looked good when he came on because he didn't have the pressure on him all game long. He was fresh. He wasn't frustrated. He was just out there to do his role, which his role was to come on and play a bit of footy. He didn't have to put up the brunt of, Cherry Evans getting bumped off. He would have been still copping that all game. And then if Cherry Evans came on to play Dearden's role, he probably would have looked good and we'd be having the discussion in reverse, So I do think Dearden is the better option to look at going forward. I probably wouldn't do it this year. I'd probably stick with Cherry Evans now, pick and stick, and hope that he'll turn it around with his experience. But I think definitely next year, if Cherry Evans goes around again and says he's available for Origin, AFL slate, I'd be coming out making a tough call saying, nah, mate, we're going to start looking elsewhere. But did play really well. He played his role really well when he came on. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe that was a part of it because every time Lomax and Gus were bringing that ball back, they were just straight over the top of Cherry Evans. And I'm not sure what's 100%. Going on with my camera at the moment.
Oh, it's playing up a little bit, but we'll just continue on anyway. But I think touching on that too, it did sound like maybe I was a little bit too harsh on Ches in that sort of area, but the overarching game, and you would know as a halfback, if a forward pack wins the middle, it dominates the middle, it's really tough for a halfback to, you know, play off the back of what they got given on, you know, this night, on Wednesday night. Like, I felt like, you know, the overarching storyline of this game for me is the Blues ran harder, they tackled harder, and it just competed in all those little moments that we used to be really known for. And like now it's just really the changing of the guard. Like, it really felt like that we couldn't withstand that barrage of when Payne wants to turn it on, he's going to turn it on, and there's no one that's going to get out there. Like, for me, I'm like looking at Tino, and I didn't think Tino had a really poor game. I thought that he was trying to like do whatever he could, similar to Paddy. I was looking at those boys, be like, all right, these are the time where you boys need to get in his face. I don't care how you do it, just do it. Like, get it. Make that tackle, make a really tough tackle, slow down the ruck. We were unable to slow it down the ruck the whole game. And on the opposite end, as soon as we tried to get ball into our position, there was only 1 or 2 moments where I saw a really nice run to get it into really good yardage where I was like, all right, boys, here we go. Yeah, we can use this. I feel like we're missing that. We missed that like state of origin grunt. For a Maroons fan, like, and I've heard this a couple of times already, this game felt like a glorified club game more so than a state of origin game. You know, like I felt like, you know, we were really ill-disciplined early on in this game, but it didn't feel like that the boys were just willing just to get into a fight. Like, we just wanted to get into it. We really wanted to get into it. And I feel like we are missing that little bit of a aggression and grunt. And like, for me, it's like, where do we go from there? Like, for me, I'm looking at Big Red, like Corey Horsburgh, like emotional character, someone that's willing to, no matter what, get into the fire. Maybe a Jai Arrow even, like someone that's willing to just be like, hey, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to take it to everyone on this field. You know, we need someone like that's going to withstand, you know, the egos of the Spencer Lenus, the egos of, you know, the players like that. We need someone that's like, all right, you know, Josh Papali'i, I know he hasn't got like that grunt to him, but at least he can pull off a shot. He can dominate a tackle. We need something like that. That's what we're missing. Like, Tino's got a bit of that, but we can't just have just him by himself.
Exactly. And just touching on your point of, you know, your boys getting dominated and you know, halves having to play off the back of a good forward pack. But normally, even in Origin, in those moments where we do have that 5-10 minute period in previous seasons where we dominate your forward pack and momentum is swinging our way, you used to have a Cam Smith or a DCE good boot out of bad field position.
Agreed.
And would just swing momentum. And that just wasn't happening last night. There was a really poor kicking game. I noticed Munster did a lot of the long kicking as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the goal is with that, but a lot of ball was finding fullbacks and wingers on the full, and New South Wales was starting their set on the front foot. And it's like you were missing Ben Hunt to get that tackle through kick out of dummy half as well, because Grant doesn't really offer that. And those are just little things that I noticed that normally when I start to feel good as a Blues supporter, like, yeah, we got momentum here, and you will break my heart by that little momentum swing back kick your way, and you will force an error. And it just didn't seem like you're right. That kick chase wasn't there. That mongrel wasn't there. And it kind of just summed it up by Queensland not kicking to Spencer on the kickoff. Like, it's something so little, but when you call out a guy like Spencer all week saying he's public enemy number one, this, that, the other, you see him come on. Don't act like you didn't see him come on, and you kick deliberately to the opposite side of the field. That just screams, I don't want to fight. I don't want to put my hand up and go after someone. Whereas, like, I think NRL Rose said it perfectly. You had guys that used to just want that. You know, you used to have like Sam Thaidays, Corey Parker, even like Nate Miles, those guys that just wouldn't take a backward step. They'd say, nah, that guy, kick it to him. We want that. And that's kind of gone.
Yeah.
Well, it was gone. I won't say gone completely, but it was gone last night.
No, and like, you know, there is certain players where I feel like they have that mold, but they just didn't get the selection due to maybe the age of what they are. You know, they're slowly filtering out of the squad. And when you look at the squad, like in that moment on the field, from memory, I don't think Tino, he was pulled off the field and Carrigan was pulled off the field. And we had Trent Liero there, who's like, you know, we saw him as an emotional character before, but in this Origin game, didn't get to see a lot of that out of him in this one. And I think like Lindsay Collins was out there on the field, and he's usually a guy that like I would probably represent as like a Nate Miles type, like, you know, that would get into that sort of, and there was just none of that. Like it really felt like we needed like that real like tone setter Like, you know, if we could have Tino out there for 80 minutes, like just out there and just giving it to him, but we don't have that ability. Like have like a Jai Arrow that's willing to, you know, push the limits a little bit. I know we're giving away some penalties early on in the game, but we need a little bit of that as well to get a little bit more emotion out of the Blues. Like I was speaking to a bloke at work today, and, you know, he was asking what do you think, you know, sort of was happening, or how do you beat a squad like the Blues? Because, you know, I think a lot of people do agree. Top to bottom, we all discussed this before, and this always happens. And I know Blues fans always go, well, you always, you know, pick the underdog tag, all that sort of bullshit. But it actually is the case, right? The Blues squad is a better, talented, potential squad. Like specifically, player after player, you can look at, you probably got two of the best centers in the game. If Latrell's playing left center, he's the best left center in the game. If Critter's playing right center, he's the best right center in the game. You've got the best 7 in the game. You've got the best front row forward in the game in Payne Haas, right? You've got all these players. How do you take it against a team like that are just out and out better in other areas? You get them emotional. You get them off their game. That's what the Maroons have been good at for a long period of time, is having these players that are willing to push the line a little bit, push us over that edge, and make you cause errors because of mental, you know, errors and get you emotional in the game. It just didn't feel like we were willing to push that boat out after those couple of penalties and just continue just to push it onto the Blues and be like, hey, we're going to make them crack because they're going to be over emotional, forget about football and want to fight. We don't have that. We didn't have that in this game. It didn't feel like that's why I continue to say it felt like a glorified club game, not an Origin game from what I knew and loved. Like the Maroons used to do that so well, and it used to piss Blues fans off, and it used to make us feel so good because like there was certain Blues players used to be like that back in the day. I used to love as well and be like, I love to hate those guys. But, you know, for you, is there a man in this Maroon squad right now that you're just looking at and be like, he's an absolute grub. I absolutely hate him. He's getting in my face. Like, look at the boys that we have there. Like, you know, you got Paddy Carrigan, probably one of the most beloved players in rugby league right now. You know, Mo Fodawaker, does he give you that grunt? Does he give you that?
No, it's DC. DC's a wanker.
You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, that's a halfback, but look at our forward pack. Like, you go back in the day.
Probably the only one with a bit of grub in him, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, back in the day, we had Justin Hodges. We had, you know, Cam Smith. We had, like, you know, even Billy Slater had that competitiveness, and it just felt like it lacked that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he's lacked that, and I think, you know, maybe Holmes isn't the way to go. Like, if Tuolangi's fit, I think maybe Holmes is time to drop out. He didn't play bad by any standard, but like he's getting that age now where he can't bring the ball back out of his end the best that he used to, and he's not starting his sets too well. Compound that with you got Hammer, who is normally a fullback, and he doesn't like to do hard carries out of the back end. And then you got KP as well, who's not really known for that. So you're left with 2 out of your back 5 in Robert Toya and Xavier Coates, who are pretty good at bringing it out of the back end. And that really did start your sets pretty poor because New South Wales could just load up. You know, they just loaded up and were smashing you guys every time. And then if your back 3, back 5 don't get off to a good start on the set, your forwards really aren't going to go anywhere either. And more times than not, I could see your boys getting dumped on their back, and that took the fire out of their bellies as well. Like even Tino getting picked up and dragged, put on his back. And 9 times out of 10, it was only really 2, maybe 3 Blues tacklers. And then when Blues were hitting it up, you're having 3, 4, sometimes 5 Queenslanders in the tackle. I just think you're just lacking. And it's hard because you do have a smaller pool to pick from. I'm not going to sit here and say that you have the same amount of talent to choose from. It is out there that it's hard, but you always find a way to win. I think you're a coach better. And maybe that's changed a little bit now that Bellamy's dipping his hands into the New South Wales squad a lot more. That obviously has a big factor. But Queenslanders always love their backs against the wall and bring that mongrel regardless of who they got in their side. And it just doesn't feel that way now.
Yeah, and that's what we're kind of praying on. Hopefully, you know, we're praying on going to Perth, you know, having this embarrassment at home to see if there is a bit of that back in us again, like, you know, to kickstart that again. Like, you know, obviously, you know, social media just amplifies like certain things 100%. And that, but you're seeing everywhere, you know, just like for me as a Queenslander, and this could just be like, this is what Origin does, right? It does this, and I'm sure you've seen Queensland fans going absolutely mental on social media as well, but, you know, like, it's a big win for you guys, and you guys are barracking like it's like the everything's done now, everything's game over, 3-0. A lot of people are going to be saying 3-0 in the series. And if you're looking at the form of what this game showed, the dominance that this game showed in our home stadium, I couldn't turn around and be like, hey, you know, I don't believe it. But in my opinion, like, I think that for us to show that we have something is coming off the back of that, showing what everyone's saying about you boys, like showing what everyone is thinking about the Queensland jersey right now. This was never what the Queensland jersey ever was. The Queensland jersey, as we all know and love, again, the whole point of Origin, the whole aspect of what State of Origin was New South Wales was the home of rugby league. It was the league was New South Wales Rugby League back in the day. You stole all our players. You made them play against us and bashed us for all those early years that weren't really documented, right? Until that 1 year that we go, all right, fuck it, everything changed. Arthur Beetson come over, and then it started everything and what State of Origin ended up becoming, right? We've always been the team that like we be the underdog. We are the underdog in a way because there's a bigger talent pool in New South Wales. New South Wales, like, again, it's the home of rugby league. You have more Sydney clubs to choose from. There's so many different aspects that go into New South Wales' favour in that aspect. We've always been the underdog, but we also, that's the way we should be playing our football, is understanding, like, fuck that. Like, it doesn't mean anything. We're going out there, we're going toe-to-toe. We're going to be grubby. We're going to do whatever we can to win that game. And that's what usually is what we need to be playing off the back of. And I hope that this game, this emotion that comes out of this game, seeing what, like Joey has said in the commentary, seeing what social media is going around saying that, like, everywhere, like, shout out to the Hello Sport boys. They do amazing stuff and great commentary, commentary on the game and like comedic commentary and stuff. And with everything they're saying about the Blues, like, you know, Queensland's, it's over. Like, you know, the State of Origin, like Suncorp it's over, right? See that and just be like, hey, like, boys, this is where we take a stand here at Perth, where I don't think we've won a game at Perth from memory. So at Perth, in the last couple of years anyway,
bit floggings as well.
We need to go out there and we need to change this narrative now. And we've done it in years past, 2020, where everything was supposed to be the Blues, you know, whitewash, and we come out and we did that. We need to change this narrative. We need to come out and do that. And I think that's the storyline we should be running through with, instead of the storyline of, because this New South Wales Blues side is full of juggernauts, but we've been known to be the side to knock out juggernauts and become 100%. Our own juggernauts. So we need to change that aspect. Yeah,
I wouldn't change too much. You know, I just think tweaking is more the words to use.
Agreed.
Tweaking and then just picking and sticking and trying to install some faith. I think the players will be embarrassed. I know I could see that Billy was embarrassed. I could see that Cam Smith in the commentary was embarrassed. And 100%. I'm sure JT was on the sideline. So I'm sure those boys are going to get around it and get in there and install some mongrel into it, and expect a couple of sin bins in game 2 and expect it to be messy. But yeah, I think it's going to be on. I think the Blues will take it serious as well. I don't think the players definitely by any means think it's done. But yeah, looking at last night as a fan, obviously you're going to get excited because, you know, that wasn't a great New South Wales performance. Let's be real. They were dominant in all the little aspects of the game, but they still weren't even dominant attack-wise compared to what we've seen them.
Exactly.
Yet Queensland just didn't really show much life at all. And yeah, it's sad and it's not good for the game. So I'm hoping Queensland could turn it around and make it a good contest, because I do love that head-to-head. You know, I don't want it to just be a walkover, because you're right. You are getting more and more limited to the players you can breed. And maybe that's going the other way against Queensland now, being too loyal to the players for too long and not getting to bleed new guys. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
We'll have to wait and see what happens. But enough of my Queensland Maroons. As we said, like we're touching on, actually quickly before we jet off of the Queensland Maroons, areas that you were looking at changing, would you agree Big Red is probably an option we need to bring in? We need some emotion in the middle, bigger body, someone that can probably take it to the contest and that sort of aspect. So would you agree in that sort of aspect as well? What other key areas would you change, you know, personnel wise?
So top starting 13, I would put Mo Fodawaker to the bench.
Yep, agreed.
I would move Ruben Cotter up front. I would put Beau Fermor starting on the edge. And I would drop Trent Liero for Big Red.
I'm right there with you, bro. I'm right there with you.
That's pretty much it. And that's no knock on Trent Liero. I just think he's lacked a bit of size. When we brung on Spencer and Max King, who are still two big boys that get through work, You guys had Trent Liero come on. You had Bo Fermel come on.
Yep.
You had Tom Dearden come on.
Yep. And Lindsay Collins is the only big body we had.
And Lindsay Collins, you know, who isn't a line bender either. He's another chip away, death by 1,000 cuts. But in the atmosphere when the Blues are wound up like that, and you got him coming up against someone like Spencer Leniu, who now plays with him as well, who will want to dominate his clubland teammate.
Yep.
Not a good match.
No, I'm right there with you. We did miss that little bit of punch, especially, you know, off the bench, you know, something that like even keep us within this arm's length when Tino and that come off the field. You know, we need someone that's going to be in the middle there. And I 100% agree with you, bro. That was probably the ones that I was looking at more so than anything. Right now, I hear the calls for DC, all that sort of stuff, but I probably agree with you in the aspect of like, allow DC to learn from this game. He's an experienced member. It's probably going to be his last couple of years in State of Origin, maybe his last year. Who knows? Yeah.
Because Sam Walker for me goes to 7, and that's also why I'm thinking leave DC there.
Yeah, and just let him play it out, and see what happens. You know, when you give this guy, a platform like this to build off of, how emotional that was and how embarrassing that was. You know, usually champion players step up, and this is going to be a big thing on him. He's wanting a big move out of Manly. If he's going to want that big move, people want to trust in what he can do on the big stage. He's going to want to have to do it on these stages as well. So I'm right there with you. But moving over from my Maroons, New South Wales, like as you said, it was a great period. Like that first half, 3 tries you ran in, very, very well done there. But overall, it wasn't your greatest performance in the world, but still very, very dominant in the middle. Are you looking at any sort of changes on the top of that? Or are you just going winning team, move it over to Perth and learn from what we learned in before? Obviously, injuries can play effect as it could with both squads, but the team you ran out there with, it looked very strong top to bottom.
Yeah, I didn't have a fault with anybody in that Blue squad last night. Everybody did their job. There wasn't one bad performance, in my opinion. You know, everyone talked about Liam Martin and Angus Crichton not being the in-form second rowers. Well, they absolutely brained their job last night. Angus went straight back to that Wally Lewis medal performance that he had in all 3 games last year. Bumping off tackles, standing in tackles, defense work, out of control. Even Hudson Young played great for mine off the bench. You know, a little bit of hot blood rushed through his head there.
Rush to the blood,
yeah. But other than that, like he was sound. Max King and Mitch Barnett, I love that swap over. It's just a like for like player that's just getting through work, full throttling it, and then just tagging out, and the other guy comes back in. That was beautiful to watch. Yeah, I can't knock anybody, to be honest, bro. Don't change.
No, I'm right there with you, bro. I was saying that too, not changing anyone. Who was your 3-2-1 of this game last night?
Payne Haas was my 3. I thought he was outstanding, and he got man in the match. Stephen Crichton was my 2. And Zachy Lomax was my 1.
All right, I'm gonna throw this up for you because this leads into my 3-2-1. How close was Stephen Crichton to you for being your man of the match?
Oh, very close, brother. The only thing that swung me was I had a bet on Payne Haas.
Yeah, money always goes that way, right?
Yeah, bro. But he was the guy that I was like, oh nah, Crichton's gonna knock him for this. And I think Sportsbet maybe thought it as well, because the odds for my cash out was not good, and all I had left was Haas to get up on my multi, and I didn't check who else was in the running, but I was like, it had to be Stephen Crichton, and yeah, that's how close he was for me.
And like, you know, Payne Haas at Suncorp, you know, a stadium he plays at week in, week out. Like, you know, he always loves to play on that turf and dominates on that turf currently right now. He's had 2 back-to-back incredible performances on Suncorp for the New South Wales Blues. And I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. Like, for me, my 3-2-1, I went Stephen Crichton number 3. I thought that for me, like, I think my 2 was Payne Haas, of course, but 3 in Stephen Crichton, bro. The moments that you're shutting down the hammer the way he was, right? It wasn't just that, though. The attacking aspect that he still had that jig on the outside. He's beaten, you know, Hammer a couple of times, which previously the Hammer had showed defensively he was very, very solid in Origin, and Critter's now becoming that great person in that sort of aspect. But also that period where we had the sin bin, Lomax went to the opposite end of the field. He defended wing and center at the same time and had massive moments there too. And I think that in that key moment of the game, where usually, as you touch on, and as we kind of touched on the history of, State of Origin, there's been moments where Queensland, they get a little sniff. And when they get that sniff, all right, it's starting to go. And we start to get a little bit of ball down the end. And, Val gets caught lapping there, Critter, bang, under the ball. Everyone pushes him out. And I was like, in that key moment, that is where your big boys need to step up. And Critter stepped up in that moment. And, I'll discuss something a little bit later with you after that. But 3, 2, 1, Critter, Payne Haas, and my one. I really, really enjoyed Zach Lomax's game out there. I think it was, again, one of the better games that he had. Did I just lose you, bro? Are you there? I might continue talking and Brody might jump back in, guys. I'm very, very sorry. Obviously, we're having technical difficulties on our end, but I thought that Zach Lomax was incredible out there, right? I thought that his post-contact meters out of the back end, I thought it was a handle every day for our boys. I thought that in general, him under the high ball, I would have thought that we had Xavier Coates on the exact same end to try and negate that, aerial threat that Zach Lomax brings. But, obviously we played that the opposite end so we could have a little bit of the attacking freedom with Xavier Coates under the high ball on the opposite end. But Zach Lomax benefited from that on his end as well. And, coming down with some massive moments. That Dylan Edwards tried to end the game there. Obviously, Zach Lomax getting up above, coming down with the ball, getting the offload away. Amazing, amazing moment. And I think we just got Brody back here. I'm just going to add him back in quickly, guys. So sorry. This is what happens with live shows. Yeah, I can hear you, bro. Everything is good. Right. Was it? So yeah, I went with 3 is Stephen Crichton, 2 Payne Haas, 1 is Zach Lomax. I thought Zach Lomax was incredible last night. Yeah,
can't argue with that, bro. 3 outstanding performances.
100%. And just quickly, lastly on Critter, I just want to fully glaze this man because I think that the year that he's had has been incredible. The last couple of years has been incredible. Let's just say his career at the moment has been absolutely incredible. It's too early. It always is too early. But this guy could go down as one of the greatest centers we've probably ever seen in rugby league, right? It's well too early to say that, put that on him right now. But think of everything he's done in his career and he's continuing to do it now. People thought that his career was going to fall apart when he goes from the Penrith Panthers to the Dogs. So all the jokes of your win percentage is going to go down from that 80% that he had before. And look at him now. Bro, your thoughts are, because you obviously watching week in, week out with the Dogs and that, where's the potential in Stephen Crichton as one of the greatest centers we've ever seen?
Oh, 100%, brother. He's top 5 already, for my opinion. And greatest is definitely on the cards. You got Greg Inglis, obviously, but the thing that goes away from Greggy is that he moved to fullback. He played some 6. I'm sure if he stayed at center his whole career, same with Latrell Mitchell, those two would probably be hard to knock off. But if you're looking out and out center, Stephen Crichton, man, has it all. Absolutely has it all. And there's a lot of good names that you can throw in that mix, but man, so proud of Stephen Crichton and the player he just keeps developing to be.
100%, bro. 100%. All right. Is that a bow in State of Origin game number 1, my bro? Is that all you've got to touch on? Is that pretty much about everything? Obviously, tears. I got my tissues here, bro. It's sad, but hopefully Maroons bounce back in Perth and make this a really good decider in New South Wales this time.
I'm sure they will, brother. I'm sure they will.
All right. And we'll touch on the Women's State of Origin in our a weekend preview as well, guys. That is coming up tonight. So basically, as soon as we end the stream, try to jump onto Channel 9 tonight. It will be playing the game as the New South Wales Blues going for a 3-0 sweep on the Queensland Maroons women's. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But Brody will be cheering that on wholeheartedly.
It will very likely happen, brother.
All right. We're going to talk about a bit more Critter as well, coming into this sort of one. Big news going around in rugby league right now, bro. And then another one. Is this why you're so perfect for being on the show this year? Because your Dogs seem to be in the media, obviously starting the year absolutely gangbusters, but Lockie Galvin. I want to get your raw thoughts overall on Lockie Galvin. You've had a little bit of time to think about this now. Your thoughts on this move from Gus Gild and the Bulldogs? Are you liking it? Where does he play? What's your thoughts in general here? Because, this could discuss, as you said before, GI moved from centre to fullback, and you're like, that's what changed. I think could Critter get moved from centre to fullback though? Birdo at centre. Like, I know that's not really the discussion for me, but your thoughts on Lucky Galvin, bro? What's going on there?
Look, I'm very exhausted with the news at the moment, like of it. You know, it's been going on for months from the second that he came out and said he wanted to release or didn't want to re-sign with the Tigers. Anyway, my raw thoughts, I don't know what the doggies are going to do or what their plan is. My raw thoughts on Lockie Galvin as a player is I would be so happy to hear this news signing if it was him to come to us in 2026.
Yep.
That is as raw as it is. I hate the whole mid-season thing. Agreed. I hate the whole unknown of what's caused the whole fallout at the Tigers, the drama, his attitude at trainings. Like he hasn't fronted the media in anything that I've seen where he's come out and done a video interview saying anything. So it's too much unknown for me. I would be so happy about this news signing if we said, look, we're not going to re-sign Reid Marnie, we're not going to re-sign Sexton, and we're going after Lockie Galvin. We've signed him. He's coming to us 2026. Those two boys will leave the club. I'll be happy as 100% happy. We get a whole preseason with him. He gets to get down in the trenches with all the other boys that have put in that work to get us to this first position with only 2 losses. And I'd be happy for that. I'd be happy. I'd think that we're definitely a championship threat. This is going the opposite way for me. Yep. Bringing him in from a club, you know, the Tigers had a really good preseason. I'm not saying they didn't work hard in their preseason, but he's coming from a club that's still somewhat struggling on and off the field. Agreed. He's now coming into a really good club that's worked really hard, and we're moving on 2 players that have done all that hard work.
Agreed.
And even during the wins, I always whinge to you about I'm not happy with Reid Marnie. I'm not happy with Toby Sexton. Yep. Even when we're winning, not just the losses where I'm sitting there pointing fingers at those guys. No. I say, shit, those 2 need to be better. Fucking pass it. Do this. You should have done that. Like they seem like they're not in the fold anyway. So I kind of seen the Reid Marnie move coming anyway. Yep. I've seen it after the Broncos game where he got ripped off after 10 minutes. And then I've seen it on the weekend where his service at a dummy half was absolutely poor. And they moved him straight to the bench, and Bailey Hayward took that 9. So I've seen that move coming already. But the Sexton one for me, I thought he was going to be that mold 7 until Mitch Woods took his spot. I didn't think, or as much as I don't like DCE, if we did this much moving, I would have been much happier for it to be for DCE, because then he would have been the cherry, no pun intended, to win the grand final this year. You know what I mean? Like that experience 7. So that's my raw emotions is I am all over the place. I see a lot of Bulldogs fans on social media in the same place. We don't know how to feel right now. I see Hectic Fred. He's happy about the signing. And I am too about like getting a player like Lockie Galvin and what he has. But right now it's just more about the timing. And I know if we left it and waited to next year, we might have got him, or, you know, we would have paid a more premium price because we're getting a pretty good deal there. I just don't want what we've built this year to fuck up. I would have rather stick with Reid Marnie and Sexton and make the game before the grand final get knocked out, and compared to potentially this happening and then us sliding straight to 8, getting into the finals and knocked out straight away again. Like, I feel like this is kind of going to be a backward step, and I hope I'm wrong for that. So that's my raw thoughts. They're all over the place. I'm thinking a million things. I'm stressed.
I'm stressed. I think there's a couple of key ones I want to touch on there. You brought up some really, really good points. And the first one is on preseason, right? And this is the reason why I fully agree with you on this point. As you said, the Tigers, they must have had a good preseason because they've shown a little bits of improvement from what they were as a club before this, right? But it wasn't a Bulldogs preseason. It wasn't a Doggies preseason. And that's where you build camaraderie. That's where you build like the team that comes together. You've been through the herd of the preseason. You build from that, right? And this dog side, you know, Toby Sexton went through that. You know, Mitch Woods probably went through that. Alex Conti went through that. All the like, junior halves that you got coming through. And you're going to get a guy that, you know, is again another developmental half. He's not an experienced half, as you touched on with DC, that you can probably put in there and be like, at least he's got experience and know how to get to the way you need to get to, and he can filter down the experience to Mitchell Woods, who is your future. Now it just feels like you've got a guy that you don't really understand where he's going to be playing. Like I've heard the whole thoughts of he could play 7. Chuck him in at 7 right now. But what does that do? You've already got the whole Toby Sexton is probably going to move on there, but you got Mitch Woods that's, looked at that jersey to be his in the next coming years. Like if he's going to be the 7 or Lockie Galvin's now, like Lockie Galvin's not a short-term play. He's going to be a long-term play.
You'd have to be.
So what does that development for Mitch Woods look like now if he becomes a 7 and in aspects, if he ends up killing it at 7, right? Like, and going back to the preseason thought, you're doing this mid-season for a developmental player that could come in and you're going to have to learn how he plays his football, learn how he what makes him tick. You haven't been in the grind with him. How do you know he's going to do certain things on the inside of you? Defensively, Critter's going to have to do a lot of work inside of him if they do connect on that same level. And there's even those whole rumors, and this always happens with the media, but obviously him and Jerome Luai don't really get along. And Jerome Luai is best mates with Critter. So what is Critter going to be hearing?
You got 3 ex-Penrith at the Tigers who are still close with 3 ex-Penrith at the Bulldogs. Exactly. That's another point.
And so there's a lot of that sort of aspect where it's like, I just don't know how this fits. I don't know how it works. I understand the potential of the player, but a team, what's the quote? It's a team, a good team will always beat a team of good players or something like that. There's a quote along that line, right?
Yeah.
You can get all the best players in the world. The Roosters have been doing that. They've been successful in those sort of points. But usually the greatest teams that we know of all time have all come from teams that built from within and they're built together. Not just buying things off the market and just trying to fit it in and be like, nah, that's better than what we have now and that's going to elevate us. There's a little bit more to team sport than that.
100%.
And I'm very curious to see first of all, what his position is going to be. I love his energy. I love his aspect in that area, but the connection is the biggest thing for me on this. As hasn't gone through a doggies preseason. He hasn't been through the hurt with your boys. Like, how are you going to build that camaraderie within this half of the season that you've already started off on such a great foot? Like, why would you want to change it now? That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's what's got me stressed, brother. And not to mention, there still hasn't been talks of the player that the Tigers are going to receive because that was part of their terms and conditions. So I'm thinking that might be a Toby Sexton swap immediately.
Yep.
I don't know. But I'm very stressed. I don't like it. I really don't. I don't want to reshuffle a Burton to centers or a Critter to fullback. You're weakening what Critter does so well at center.
Agreed.
And Connor Tracy's been pretty good, in my opinion.
Agreed.
I don't like that Mitch Woods is now going to be put on the back burner in Cup. I've heard that Galvin could play 13 down the line. He still hasn't even filled out to play NRL, in my opinion, let alone fucking 13.
Yep.
And then, you've got Kurt Mann, Jamin Salmon, and Bailey Hayward. But I know Bailey Hayward will be our 9 now that Reid Marnie's gone, and I love that.
Yep.
But Mitch Woods for me is now going to be waiting, and somebody might come snatch him up, and I don't like that thought.
It's the long-term thought there too. Like, Perth Bears are just about to jump into this competition.
Exactly.
Like, the amount of money, like we saw Isaiah Katoa go to the Dolphins for the amount of money they invested into them. Mitch Woods is that next kid that everyone's looking at. This is a shiny toy that's going in development that every player, even codes, like AFL wanted him to come to AFL. He's that good of an athlete. Obviously, there's still development going on in his game, but I'm sure the Perth Bears looking at Isaiah Katoa and the Dolphins are going, if we can get Mitch Woods, like what, you know what I mean? Like, this is that's what makes it such a crazy time for a guy that as an operator has been doing all the right sort of moves with the Dogs, Gus Gould, but it just feels like for me, this one has just been a little bit of a misstep. And not to add to this because there's still a lot more water to go under the bridge, but if anyone's read Ivan Cleary's book and the way everything worked out with Penrith and how that all went the way it went, Gus had a lot of input in his early career with Ivan Cleary. He wanted him at the club. He did everything he could to make a move. But then Gus became really, really hands-on with everything. He kind of he's like, I want to do this way. I want to do this way instead of allowing Ivan kind of to mold his team the way he wanted to. And that's what ended up causing, Ivan with the poor form, him to get sacked and moved on. And then he came back later on with the terms and conditions that Gus doesn't need to know and he doesn't need to be at the club. And he ended up getting pushed out. Gus has done such a good job to put the building blocks into place of the Dogs, but is this another story of Gus Gill just maybe doing a little bit too much that, maybe he's hurting the club more than what he could be, inventing? And as I said, there's more water to go into the bridge. I'm not saying that right now, but there is starting to become a little bit of storylines now that is a very similar track the way Penrith Panthers went. And if everything goes well, if you do move on Gus Hill, you might get 4 premierships in a row. Who knows? But this is what it could start become like. Either it goes very, very well, or it can go the opposite way.
Well, yeah, 100%, brother. Bang on. You're right. He's built. Well, I'm not even going to say just him, because I know Serraldo is doing a lot of the work.
Agreed.
And are hearing that he's doing a lot of the work. But regardless, the Bulldogs have built a good culture, whoever's in control of that. We've got a club that guys want to come for. Guys are not really looking to advance their contracts so they can stay at the Bulldogs. They're not chasing money elsewhere. Guys like, Blake Wilson and stuff like that, they wanting to stay at the Bulldogs, even if that means playing cup and developing and waiting for your opportunity. They're wanting to stay at the Doggies. I hope this doesn't go backwards. And especially now with everybody coming for Gus in the media, he's been caught out lying. There's been lies that he hasn't met Galvin face to face, and there's been interviews where he said, when I met him, he's bigger than I expected. Shit like that. We're not interested in Lockie Galvin. Oh, here we are. I'm actually almost waiting for another plot twist, and I'm hoping I wake up and it's a plot twist that he actually backfires and goes somewhere else yet again, because it's still not all official. It hasn't come out as official. It's all just still, it's there. We're waiting to finalize it. I'm hoping it somewhat doesn't. But now we're obviously upset our players. So
yeah, what does it cause? And lastly, before we jump off this topic, this is not at all shooting down on Lockie Galvin overall in this general, because me and Brody both believe very, very good football player. And I've seen a lot of people come out and be like, is he actually as good as what people say is? He's got potential to be as good as what people says he is. And what I love about Lockie Galvin's game is he has intent in his game. He's got energy. He wants his hands on the ball as much as he can to change a contest. I love that first building blocks of his game, because not a lot of good juniors have that. A lot of them maybe rest on their laurels. We've seen very lazy juniors out there. He looks like a kid that wants to improve in his game and get better and better. But it's got to make sense. That's the biggest thing. It's got to make sense. As a team, they got to buy into what Lockie Galvin can, and Lockie Galvin's got to buy into the side. And we just haven't seen anything out there to look at it and go, all right, this is a perfect fit. Where if you look in other clubs, there is areas where you can say, when you look at Parramatta, you go, him to 6, Moses to 7, looks like a great fit. They can move something to the future. With the Dogs, it just looks like you're moving so many pieces to fit someone in that just has this little bit of potential.
Yeah, I think Gus tried to compare it to, everyone said Hughes and Munster wouldn't work. Motherfucker, this is not Hughes and Munster.
It isn't. But they're two fullbacks.
Yeah. And I love Burton and Galvin is good player so far in his early career. But it's not Munster and Jerome Hughes. Yes, Jerome Hughes was a really good development story, but Munster always had that talent, always had that flair. And yeah, you cannot compare them. And that was under Craig Bellamy in a very, very dominant Melbourne Storm system that had Billy Slater and Cam Smith get to bleed both those guys through.
100%.
Anyway.
You're still in early days, bro. And as I said, there's still a lot of water to go under the bridge. This may become a great little move for the Bulldogs, in the future. And if it does happen that way, I'm sure you're going to be cheering that on. And this is not even saying about that, but it's just more of the fact of right now, it just looks messy. And this is the first time in the last 2 years now, or the last couple of years, that it's looked messy under the Dogs. Everything's looked like you've been solid in your game plan, your plan overall. You're a side that looks like you know what you're going to be doing. You're going to do it that way. This is the first time where you kind of you're taking a look over your shoulder and be like, why have we changed the game plan now? Everything's worked for us right now. Why are we changing it now for something that may not turn into what we believe it can turn into?
Exactly. And Tarns is exactly right. The media does blow things out of proportion. Who's to say that, there's not even that much drama around him, And who's to say that, I don't know, because I did hear rumors of Reid Marnie asked 6 months ago to explore his options as well, because there's potential that he wanted to come back to Queensland. But now it just looks like, he's getting shafted, he's getting moved out. Well, maybe that's also somewhat what he wanted. The Sexton one is a bit of shafting, because they did come out and say, we've stopped negotiations because DC and Galvin both came potentially available. Oh, nah, we've turned both them down. We've started negotiations, and now it's
Mm-hmm.
up. See you later. So
Yep.
like Sexton's getting fucked around a little bit, and that's probably been going on for a long time. And
Yep.
he's still holding his nerve to play somewhat decent footy.
I agree. And shout out to Toby Sexton. Like, you know, as I said, he's still got a lot of growing in his game as well. But yeah, again, there's a lot more to come out of this, guys. And, you know, obviously we got the perfect member to discuss his thoughts on this move with Brody over here. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. But anything more you want to touch on around rugby league? That's not been, obviously State of Origin has just taken over everything before we move off of this. And guys, we'll go back to our normal segments next week due to obviously time constraints and me being sick. Like we weren't able to do our proper, you know, segments this week. But you know, anything more you want to touch on with anything else going around rugby league? I haven't seen too much else going out there.
Just quick moves. Eels, who do they chase?
On the markets, or even someone off the market, I'm not too sure. To fill in that six, they have got a lot of good sixes coming through. These kids are young, though. Shout out to, I can't pronounce his last name too well, but Lorenzo. He's been playing SG ball and moving up to flag, absolutely killing it. They got a couple of good pieces there. Ronald Volkman can do a job at six. I don't like him at six in my opinion. On the market, bro, I have to have time to think and sit on that. I wouldn't go Toby Sexton, even though Toby Sexton looks like he's going out of the market. You don't need a 7.
Toby Sexton to Manly, DC to the Roosters, Sandon Smith to the Eels.
Ooh, that's a great play. That is a great play. I didn't even think of that.
Or Sexton to Canberra. It's one of the two. But I think Canberra's going to roll with Ethan Sanders.
And then, like, for the Tigers, do you believe they'll pick anyone up out of this, or do you reckon they'll just go Latu Fanu and
I think Latu. I think Latu will come through and he'll play. Yeah,
that's a great thought, bro. I have to look into who's on and off in the market, but now you say that, that's a really good thought. You must have been thinking about this before.
Yeah, I did think about it because Sandon, obviously, if DC goes to the Roosters like planned, DC, Sandon, Sam Walker, Sandon Smith playing out of his skin this year, so imagine him in the Eels with Moses. Outstanding. And Tamari Martin, Tarns, that's a good one. Could find a spot back somewhere. Yeah, maybe Tamari out there. I'll continue to think about that. Were they close?
Dylan Walker, yeah, they're very, very close. They are. They were.
So, Tamari to
fishing.
Eels.
It might be the go. Anything more you want to touch on?
Nah, that's all for me.
All right, sweet. All right, let's move over to our weekend preview. Then we'll finish off on some Supercoach, my bro. So, the first game of the weekend, we got the Dragons versus the Newcastle Knights at Netstrata Jubilee Stadium. So, Dragons home a game here. Christian Tuipulotu looks like he is in, but from what I heard,
he's out.
It sounds like we got a debutant coming our way. Nathan Lawson, he's been absolutely killing it in Cup, guys. I know a lot of Dragons fans have been calling on this name forever. Very, very good talent out there and might be a little Supercoach play for the future, guys, if you want to keep a hold on to. Not too sure how long Tuipulotu could be out further for, but keep an eye on that. With the Newcastle Knights, Adam Elliott and Paul Bryan. Don't know who Paul Bryan is. But anyway, Adam Elliott is out in this contest.
Man just got violated.
Shout out to Paul. And that would mean that I think Brodie Jones comes back into the lineup from memory anyway. So your thoughts on this game, bro? Which way are you going?
I'm going to go to Dragons 1-12 in this one, brother. I know the Knights got it going last week, but I just, I think Dragons at home will be too strong.
Just quickly, obviously KP didn't have his greatest game in Origin last night, and obviously seeing the Newcastle Knights last week under Fletcher Sharp at fullback, is it food for thought that the Newcastle Knights, and again, I probably don't agree with the sentiment, but it's a question to throw out there. Is KP maybe holding back Newcastle's attack a little bit there, or do you think it's because that Penrith side they ran out last week kind of looked a little bit easier for a side to go look very dominant there? 100%,
because Fletcher Sharp's played the same way all year, whether he's got 6 or 1 on his back, in my opinion. So, I don't, in attack, you're seeing Fletcher play that 5'8" role, that fullback role, and KP's kind of playing that first receiver half role. So I think it's more so that Penrith were just really weak on the weekend.
Could you see, do you think Fletcher Sharp's a better fullback than 6?
Probably, yeah.
If you were Newcastle looking at this, and if KP was looking at an out, would you allow KP to walk for some money and look for a good halfback on the market and have Fletcher Sharp being your fullback? with Dylan Brown.
Ooh, but they got Dylan Brown, so Dylan Brown, fullback, Fletcher Sharp. Like, look, it'll work. It could work for sure.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye on that. But
That's smart. Yeah, that's a good thought process. And chase them better, outside backs.
Yeah. Yeah, with all the money that's held up in that area, it could be the way to go for the future. But I'm right there with you, bro. I'm going to go to Dragons in this contest. I'm still not convinced on a Newcastle Knights attack. Even over the last week, guys, I just that Panther of Panthers squad they ran out there. Name the first grader.
Yeah, literally.
All right, moving over to dry track, hopefully. Saturday Arvo, the Gold Coast Titans versus the Melbourne Storm here. Josiah Puhulu obviously moving over to the Melbourne Storm. Unable to get his debut game this weekend, but we'll all see him in the future. He looks good in Melbourne Storm colours. He's going to be an absolute freak for the future. Not too many other changes here, but Gold Coast going back to Jalen DeGrit at fullback, AJ Brimson at 6, and that leaves Kieran Foran in that 14 jersey, bro. Which way are you going in this contest? As I said before, looks like a dry track at Gold Coast Saturday Arvo.
Desi's soul searching. Melbourne off the bye. Harry Grant, Liero, Munster all coming back off devastating Queensland loss. Oh, and Coates. Melbourne 20 plus.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Just look at that bench lineup comparatively, bro. Tyron Wishart, Nelson. Crazy. That's hectic. And when they get Puhulu there, oh my God. So Melbourne just keep doing Melbourne things. I'm right there with you. I'm going to go 26 plus. Let's add
26 plus.
26 plus. It could be a bad day at the Gold Coast, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Obviously, next game on a Saturday, we got the Cowboys versus the West Tigers at Townsville, my bro. Obviously, Murray Taulagi, who did fall out of Origin due to injury. He's out of this game. And obviously, Lockie Galvin is out for the West Tigers. That would move Heath Mason to the 6 jersey there. Very interesting move, in my opinion. Your thoughts on this game, bro? West Tigers, Cowboys at home.
Cowboys.
How are you feeling here?
Cowboys probably 13 plus.
Cowboys 13 plus. I am going to ride that with you. Cowboys at home, I think they'll be too strong. Too much attack in that side for me in this one.
Yeah, I think so. And Tigers are still going to be recovering from everything they've got going on.
Yeah, totally agree. Moving over to the last game on the Saturday, we got the Manly Seagulls versus the Brisbane Broncos at 4 Pines. With the Manly Seagulls in this one, Tom Trbojevic again, unfortunately, falls out due to injury, which we hate to see. Takiaho obviously out as well. Ben Trbojevic comes back in. DC should return back from Origin. With the Brisbane Broncos, Ben Tekorda, pretty sure he finds himself a bench role there for the first time this year. Which way are you going in this contest?
Oh, Jake Trbojevic still out as well, eh? That's weird. I'm gonna look. I don't know. Flip a coin with the Broncos' performances, but I'm gonna go with the Broncos, and I'll go 1-12. I reckon it'll be a close one. And Tans just has a question about Warbrick. Did you have any more information on him?
No. I still haven't had too much information on him. I know they're taking it really easy on Will Warbrick this year because the concussion came, I think, after a game he had symptoms, and apparently it's not that bad. He hadn't even been training from what I've heard through this period either. So he could be a little while out. He might be a year out due to concussion issues. So very, very scary signs, but hopefully he's doing okay.
Not good to hear. Well, your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'm going to go Brisbane Broncos as well, but I'm right there with you. This could be a 50-50 game. I could see the Broncos completely falling apart like they have been for the last couple of weeks, but I could also see them firing. It's really dependent on if these guys can continue to go forward like they brought from Origin and, see what Ben Tekorda has off the bench overall.
Shout out to Chris in the chat. Appreciate you coming through, mate.
Shout out to you, Chris. Thank you so much for jumping in. But we're both going Broncos there. Moving over to the first game on the Sunday, we got the South Sydney Rabbitohs versus the New Zealand Warriors at Accor Stadium. The Warriors, no Ali Leotoa. Looks like he may have been dropped from this. He's been named in Cup, but he had been dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury as well.
Yeah,
he has.
I thought it was the ankle injury.
Yeah, so he has been named in Cup, but he may fall out of Cup too. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Bunty Afol also out in this one. We bring back James Fisher-Harris, Mitch Barnett, and Rocco Berry. Really, really great ins that we see there. So, and there's a little bit of rumor going around Latrell.
Knee.
A little bit of a knee knock, so he may not play in this game. Your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I reckon you boys will get it done, 13 plus. You know, the loss had to come last week, and I think you'll bounce back in a big way. I'm going to go you guys 13 plus here.
Yeah, and again, like I didn't get to touch on it this week. I missed out on all the live streams this week, but with that performance with the Warriors last week, Canberra have been red hot this year, right?
Yeah.
We can all agree they're a bit different team to what we probably expected at the start of the year. And in a team like that, without Mitch Barnett and Fisher Harris, I know a lot of our attacking probably wasn't to the highest standard over that weekend. But then again, the wet weather. There's a lot of discussion on our attacking football going around. But what I love about the Warriors this season is going back to that 2023 season to we will not die wondering. We came out with more of the opportunities to win that game late. And, you know, the boys were in the contest defensively. We were absolutely solid in that game, even without Fisher Harris and Barnett. So hopefully that can go tenfold with both those boys in the middle and a little bit of aggression, which I'd love to see the boys this weekend against these Rabbitohs.
100%, brother. I think you will for sure. Tans has a question, and I actually do want your thoughts on this, on interesting shift of Arthurs to fullback. What is your thoughts behind this?
Yeah, I think that this is more so pushing Selwyn Cobbo back to his, I wouldn't say preferred position because he came through as a fullback. But in first grade right now, I think that, you know, Selwyn Cobbo is probably more suited to the winger role right now in this position. But also, could this add to the whole thing of he came in, you know, he wasn't picked in the Maroon squad due to a wrist injury? Could this be maybe the wrist injury, as in they don't want his hands on the ball as much and just want him sitting on the wing? Or do you look at it as more as a dropping for you?
The injury one I didn't actually think of. That's a good shout, and that's probably what it more realistically is.
Yeah.
For me, the way I looked at it when I seen this change was, I don't think it's more so moving Arthurs back to fullback to see how he to fullback to see how he goes. I think it's more so moving Cobbo back to wing to see who's going to have that wing spot out of Arthurs and Cobbo when Walsh comes back.
Yep.
Because looking at that, you don't drop Shibasaki, you don't drop Mariner, you don't drop Stags. I think Arthurs has been great all year, but maybe they're just testing to see who's going to play that wing spot better for when Walsh comes back. Because I think Mariner's been unreal.
I do too.
So maybe it's a test to see, Cobbo, show me something on the wing, mate. Otherwise, you're the odd man out when Walsh comes back.
That's a great thought. I kind of envisioned it like he was going to be the silhouette into the best way to ease Reece Walsh back into the side. Is probably not to have Cobbo and build your team around Cobbo right now because Reece Walsh has got to jump back in. Not to say Jesse Arthur is going to do the same thing as Reece Walsh, no way. But, you know, he's just going to do very, like, you know, get into the dirty work. But I love your point there. You know, you're testing out your wingers there. Dean Mariner's got this real high upside. He's a try scorer. He's a top finisher. Selwyn Cobbo, big body. You know, makes big meters out of the back end as well. And he has that special moments in him as well. It'd be sad to see Jesse Arthurs fall out of the side if this is the way they go and Reece Walsh comes back into the fullback role in the next coming weeks. If he wants to come to the Warriors, you know, come back Jesse Arthurs. But
I don't think he will. I don't think he will.
But that's great thoughts for you, bro. Like, they're probably testing some things here to see what moves can be made. Like, maybe Jesse Arthurs goes back to a center position he came through as, or a Dean Mariner comes back to a center. Like, I'm not too sure. I'm really not too sure.
Neither, but it's just interesting. Madge is trying things, and he's brung Ben Takora finally in.
Yeah, which is,
Shout out to Chris.
We've been waiting for it forever. And Chris, guys, I don't have much clever things to say, but a few weeks ago, I was said Max King would be in the Origin side. Just for like some credit. Yeah, shout out to you, Chris.
Receipts, brother. You got receipts.
Yeah, get your photo out, and then we'll give it to you there. And imagine, while Chris is here, we got the Penrith Panthers versus the Parramatta Eels at CommBank Stadium. This will be a Penrith Panthers home game at CommBank. You know, that's a
and Mitch Moses will not back up, I hear.
Really?
With a calf complaint.
That's crazy. Oh, here we go. Brody's got his ear to the ground. Nathan Cleary and all that, all clear to back up?
Yeah. Penrith up here is fully clear. Lomax is clear. The only one the question mark is Moses with calf complaint.
That's wild, bro. That's wild. How are you feeling in this game? Do you think Penrith, this is a time for them to try and kick back into gear after Origin? Maybe Cleary's feeling himself? Or do you think Parramatta will do it on their home ground?
Nah, Penrith desperate to win. I'm going to go Penrith. I'll go 1-12 though. I think Penrith will put up a really good fight.
Yeah, Battle of the West. We love to see this contest. I think Penrith probably will take a little bit out of the Origin. Dylan Edwards and a little bit of, that winning spirit, bring it back. I thought Cleary got his hands on the ball a lot in first receiver roles in Origin. I think he might come back to Penrith with a little bit of that too. So Penrith 1-12. Very, very excited to see how that plays out there too. Shout out to Chris O in the chat. Parramatta. Has Penrith Panthers won at Combank this season?
I don't think they have, to be honest.
No, I don't think they have. Yeah, there you go.
Shout out to Tans. It would make him eligible for Australia, but he hasn't played for the Kiwis before. He's just played for the Maori All-Stars.
Exactly.
But I don't think he'll be looking in Australia, to be honest.
No, I was actually really surprised in Queensland, that jersey. Obviously, an incredible player, but I, again, was with everyone and thought that he would represent the Kiwis later on down the track. So, very interesting there. Last game on the Sunday, we got the Roosters versus the Raiders at Allianz Stadium. All the Roosters boys have been named to back up. Shout out to Robert Toyer and their debutant from Origin, Angus Crichton, get back into form there. With the Raiders, they get Hudson Young back as well. So in this one, bro, do you think the Raiders, this is going to be a great game. Do you think the Raiders will be a little bit too strong? Will they add from their trip from New Zealand? Or the Roosters have been in some form lately?
I reckon the Roosters will get this one done. I just got a feeling.
Oh, and Paddy starting at hooker as well.
Yeah. Starling's
so
a big miss.
Tom Starling. Yep.
I've got the Roosters. I've got a feeling. I got the Roosters 1-12.
Yep. I'm going to go the Raiders 1-12. I think it's going to be a close game either way. I think they're going to be able to grind this one out, especially with Tarpany and Horsburgh. Horsburgh will probably want to audition for Origin in this one. But Spencer, he'd love to take this contest too. So this is going to be a game, bro. But I'm going to go. I'm going to go Raiders 1-12. I think they've been just the better side this year, but the Roosters have been kicking into gear right now.
It's just the back five for me that's giving me the edge on the Roosters. If they get enough good ball, they'll come over the top.
Yep, 100%. Just quickly, where are the Roosters sitting on a ladder right now? They're sitting 11th. They're form. They're going 5-6. With a win here, gets them back into that top 8 discussion. Especially from the start of the year. Shout to them. But we're going either side of the draw on that one, aren't we?
Yeah, that one's going to be a great game.
All right. Lastly, before we jump over to the Supercoach, guys, we will be touching on the New South Wales Blues women's versus the Queensland Maroons women's squad, guys. That will be on straight after us, 7:45 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. New Zealand Standard Time would be 9:45. I think 2 hours ahead.
10:45. I think it's 3.
10:40. Maybe it's 3. Let us know, guys. But yeah, obviously a very late one for New Zealanders out there. They need to change that. That was one thing I want to bring up with Origin.
Oh yeah, the kickoff's at 11 for those guys.
Yeah, that's 10 or rough. 11. Either way, that's rough. I know it's rough on us.
12 or 1 finish.
Bro, that is disgusting, man. Yeah. For the Kiwis out there, and also for us, it's a tough slog to stay up from 8 o'clock and that when your team's not looking that great.
Kickoff 6:30 or 7. Done.
Yeah, straight after the news, get it on.
10. Oh, there you go, 10. So 2 hours.
That sucks, man. That's a 12 o'clock finish. Maybe 1 o'clock you're getting into bed. That sucks, man.
No, that's rough.
Yeah, they need to change that. But anyway, Queensland coming in. Hayley Maddock gets that fullback jersey over Tamika Upton. I think that was an injury.
Cabo girl. Yeah.
Shout out to the Cabo girl.
She has broken ankles, bro, after I think it was Chapman went round there.
Shout out to Chapman. And also, Keely Joseph is out, and I think that is Destiny Brill comes in. They move Ali Brigginshaw to the 13 jersey. Your thoughts on this game? Do the Blues go for the 3 in a row? Do you think the Maroons can pull out some Maroon spirit in this one?
Put it this way, at least the Hammer will get to enjoy an Origin game.
You killing
it's
Blues,
his girlfriend winning, but
you suck.
Blues, brother. Blues here. Queensland girls just don't have it. They're missing so much strike power, and that Blues squad is pretty much top to bottom.
They are. I'm going to do it for one Maroons girls. Girls, get it done. Get just the one game. Get it done. That's what I want to do, bro. Get it done. The Maroons girls. Hopefully, Hayley Maddock. Shout out to Caboolture Rep, baby. She's going to absolutely clean up on these Blues girls.
All right, brother.
All right. Anything more you want to touch on before we move over to Supercoach?
Nah, not at all.
All right, let's move over to my Supercoach side here. So we're just going to quickly touch on Supercoach this week. Obviously, it's not the biggest week of Supercoach after the bye period, after State of Origin.
Yeah. It's kind of stale at the moment. Like, I know that it's an important time of Supercoach, but it's just stale. It's hard. It's stressful. I can't fault guys for going whichever way throughout the Origin period, to be honest. Whether you care through the Origin period, whether you don't, whether you pull your team apart, whether you don't. As long as you get 13 players, go hard.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. All right,
Shout out to Bob Carr hitting the emojis.
Shout out to Bob Carr in the bed, listening to the second half at ABC Sport on radio. Yeah. Go to sleep so you don't have to. Yeah, I feel that, bro.
He's talking about the Origin. I thought he meant
he's talking about the Origin.
We're not on ABC radio.
Actually, I've done some wheeling and dealing, brother. I got us on ABC radio.
That's why you've been sick all week, eh?
Yeah, 100%, bro. You got to be doing these things, mate. You got to be doing these things. Moving over to Supercoach. Oh, wipe my face. So, both our squads, obviously, what would you say here? 875 in a period that if you didn't captain, let's say, if there was anyone out there, Dylan Lucas or Fletcher Sharp, you'd be cheering.
And there would have been maybe a few people, but
yeah. But your boy, you went with Joseph Tarpanay, just getting over the top of my boy here, Adam Fanua-Blake at 110. Your thoughts on the week of Supercoach there? 872 points, very close to me with 875.
Yeah. Look, I don't know. I'm kind of lost throughout this period. I thought I would have done a lot better, but my guys that were supposed to strike didn't strike. Obviously, Viliami kick out only 45. Teddy didn't crack 100. Hines didn't crack 100. And Canberra, the wet weather didn't help. Let's be honest. Hopefully a better couple of bye periods and can play some catch up in the next 4 weeks. And have some pod plays where we get a little bit different happening to try and bridge the gap. But we're still leading the Wires Up comp as far as I'm aware. But I don't know, a little bit stale. I'm finding it hard to stay motivated on what I want to do. There's too many ways to go with trades. Yeah,
I'm right there with you, bro. I'm definitely in that sort of mode with Supercoach just now. There's not a lot of moving I really want to be doing in this period to kind of hold in steady. I feel like I'm in a good sort of place. Like I got players all that I want. I don't want to move on, but they're just not performing. You know what? I'm going to blame the Cronulla Sharks in this one. How dare the Sharkies get dominated the way they did against that Roosters outfit? Yeah, how dare they?
That was like a Knights versus Penrith performance, except the Sharks are a lot better than the Knights, and they still come up fucking trumps.
Yeah, shout out to us too. Yeah, you're right. You both on top on Wires Up TV. Appreciate you, Tars. Thank you so much for jumping in. As always a big member of our team here.
How would you feel about the Origin players getting the score for Supercoach?
How would you figure that out? So because there's going to be other sides that are going to be on the bye, right?
Yeah.
So players like Kiwi players that are going to be on the bye, you'd probably have to filter around that sort of aspect of it. And then are you even going to be getting that good of scores in Origin footy as well to even kind of look at it that way?
It'll save a lot of trading though, I guess.
It would do.
It's either that or you just don't. No, you got to score still. I don't know. Carry on.
It may come to it I think this always comes back to the discussion of Origin in general, and it is just this one thing that because it's so traditional, we just put it as what we do and we just allow the teams play around it and stuff like that. Maybe if we have a little bit more of an even competition as in sides, like a 18 team competition, when that happens, we can do a better bye period, more games of footy in a way, so it doesn't hurt as much. But do we just have a rep round during that period? Just not have NRL?
That's what I was thinking, dude. Does the NRL go on a 3-week break and you just go Origin, 3 weeks in a row?
Yeah, and that's the thing that keeps getting discussed in this period overall, and it would help Supercoach in a way, because this is where it makes it a little bit tougher to make these decisions. The better players probably get the best out of this period, and that's what makes it tough in some sort of aspects as well. But also, there's games like what we had at the weekend where, I put all my trust in someone like Adam Fanua-Blake going up against a understrength Rooster side, and look what he produced over the weekend too. But I like that aspect of having a rep round, getting to see Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, or whatever you want to do in that aspect, or even like maybe Queensland under 19s, Queensland under like New South Wales under 19s. Do that and just have a week off of NRL footy.
Yeah, for like 3 weeks.
Yep. Or would you just go like game, NRL, game, NRL? That makes sense? Like a rep round, NRL?
Yeah, maybe you do 2 NRL and then game. So that way the boys get to play. Oh.
Yeah, and like have that 2-game block in between. Yeah, that makes sense. So have that little period of like maybe players that are looking at Origin to get into have that little period of like showing themselves in that 2-game period. I like that aspect because Supercoach wise, it sucks so much.
Yeah, Supercoach wise, and just like the competition, like the footy games over the weekend weren't really quality games as well. Like,
shout out to our game, the Warriors, and that was probably the best game.
A good quality game, yes.
But everything else was like just due to the people.
Continuing on to Supercoach.
We could get bogged down with that forever. I haven't set my vice captain to captains just yet. I was actually moving. I might do that right now. I've been quite lazy in this aspect here. But anyway, continuing on. This is my side coming into this weekend here. I've got Ryan Papenhuyzen, James Tedesco, and Scotty Drinkwater as my fullbacks here. Great to see that all those boys are ready to go, fit and raring to go. Definitely missed on most of them last week. Got James Tedesco, but only getting a 68. A lot of moves for a 68 score definitely sucks.
Yeah, at that price as well.
Yeah, 100%. Also, too, guys, I did not have any trades for this week. Still contemplating whether I even do have a trade, but probably more than likely, I'm just going to go this week without a trade.
Smart.
All right, moving over to my back line, Dylan Lucas, Valentine Holmes, Nwanga Nituase, and Isaac Tungo. And shout out to Robert Toya with the State of Origin bouncing back as well. So hopefully big scores coming out there.
100%, bro.
Munster, Dewey, Cleary there. No Nico Hines. Have you flirted with the thought of trading out Nico Hines?
No.
No? So you're holding Cleary and Hines for this whole Origin period?
Whole Origin period and probably all season, to be honest.
Yeah, I have seen people do it. I think because of the buy round coverage of Nico Hines and stuff like that from memory. I'm not too sure what they're...
He only misses the major buy for Origin 3.
Maybe it was trading out Cleary in this period. I'm not too sure. It was one of those two anyway. I have heard that, but yeah.
I'm going to hold him.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, bro. Tino Olakau'atu Hubner is going to get a play this week. I got San Rami on my bench, but I'm probably going to go Hubner.
Who have the Eels got?
They have got the Penrith Panthers at Combank.
Oh.
Yeah. I know.
He might bag a try assist or 2 inside Lomax. Oh, that's a tough one.
It's tough because you got pace right there, and you got a guy that has pretty low floor.
Yeah, Hubner's going to have to do a lot of work to the middle against your boys, so pretty safe there.
All right, I'm going to run with that. My captain has been set on Terrell May at the moment, but I have been contemplating other captains there. We discussed Scotty Drinkwater, which I'm sure we're going to move over to your side soon, and other players we have there. But Joseph Tarpany also there as well. Adam Finnell-Blake on the bye. I got Sanders Smith and Harry Grant there. There is a little bit of chat around Harry Grant, whether he's going to back up as well. I think he was cleared, but definitely wait and see.
Okay. I like it. I like it, brother. I feel comfortable enough for you to not run any trade there and still be solid enough to compete this week. Yep. You know, Hubner and Tungo are probably your weakest two that I can see in there just on paper.
Agreed.
And one of those will drop out if they're the lowest scoring player anyway. And I'm pretty happy that you'll still be able to cover that with the other guns you've got in there, bro.
For everyone out there too, bro, that is looking at making moves in this period, and I know it's probably player dependent, but is there players on the market right now that you're looking at and be like, I want them around this Origin period right now? I'm sure we're going to get into some guys when I jump to your squad, but...
There's only one around the Origin period. After that, it's more so the moves I want after the Origin period when it's just set and forget for the season. So what I want to carry for the last 8-10 weeks of the season.
All right, move it over to your squad here. So your trades for this week. King Tonga comes in for Lockie Galvin due to whatever's going on with Lockie Galvin. We may not see him for a little bit. The second time this year that you've had to come under this issue. And Kaloma Tungi in for Lockie Hubner, a really good upgrade that you have there because Kolomatangi is looking like a buy every day of the week coming up.
Yeah,
so
for him, he's my one that I wanted to target around the bye period. The Rabbits don't have a bye now until after Origin 3, I do believe.
agreed.
And my other move was Lockie Galvin to an Ezra Man, and then use Ezra, but his bye coverage is pretty average. And I don't know what the Broncos are going to dish up on a week-to-week basis. So, and then hold Hubner and trade out Kickow for Keon. But I think Hubner, he's only going to give me my 40, 50. I'm going to get that plus at least another 30 with Keon. And Kickow still gives me pretty good buy coverage. So I'm going to roll with him. So, yeah, that's my thought process there. And then next week, if all goes well, I don't get any major injuries, I won't be using any trades next week.
Love it, bro. Love it. You're very, very set and ready to go here. Sitting at your fullbacks, you got Ryan Papadazza and Scotty Drinkwater, both of these are vice captain and captain. James Tedesco sitting on your bench there. Your thoughts around your captaincy option here?
Yeah, I'm bound to get a ton and some out of one of those two on the weekend. They're both very favorable matchups. And yeah, I'm hoping that Pappy goes really well so I can just not stress Drinkwater. And then I'll bring in probably Blake Brayley for Sanders Smith and just whack captaincy on him. But hopefully one of these two can go for a ton plus.
Yeah, 100%, bro. Moving to your back line to Marle, who's been incredible this season. Robert Toya, Dylan Lucas, Ed Ruben Garrick, sitting on your bench. Obviously, these guys, no reserves. Ronaldo Mulatalo with the 37 last week. Sucked.
And he's got a week suspension to serve now next week, but at least it's next week, and he's only got the one game, I do believe. So I've got him for that buy coverage, which is the whole reason I brought him. But Sin Bin really costed me last week. He would have got maybe a 50, and that would have been so much better.
Yeah, 100%. Cam Munster, Nathan Cleary sitting there in your halves. Moving over to your edge back rows, you got Tino Fasul Malaawi, Kolomatangi, and Zach Hosking on your bench. You got Morgan Smithies and Hamish Stewart there. Very, very solid looking lineup there. You got Tarpanay, you got May, and you got Haas. That is a big plus for you this week.
Yeah, I'm hoping for, again, another 80 plus out of all these guys. So that's 240. I know Haas's workload might be down a little bit, but they do play the Saturday night. So it should be all good.
Should be good there. Sanders Smith there to finish out your lineup for this weekend, my brother. Anything more you want to touch on with squad before we get into any questions or that, or just a little discussion?
Yeah, nah. It's not too much more to touch on. I'm just happy that I've got enough cover this week.
All right, guys. Guys, make sure you jump in if there's any questions for you guys for Supercoach coming into this week. Again, not much to talk about. There's not too many trades for me that I'm looking out there, other than maybe if you want to try to find a way to go on Matangi, but I'm not willing to pull apart my team for it just yet. Brody did some really smart moves in his aspect because Lockie Galvin, that whole situation opened him up to those moves as well. And if that wasn't on the cards, would you have moved for Glom Matangi this week?
I did with the kick out, and like I said, I went Galvin to Mam and kick out to Keon. But I just didn't feel right. I feel like kick out still got so much to offer. He always works hard in games, and he's got the ability to go for really high, and he gives me good buy round coverage. So I'm going to hold him for now. And then once the Raiders are on bye after Origin 3. They're on the bye this week, but then they've got pretty good bye coverage after that. But after Origin 3, their bye coverage, they're on bye, and that's when I'll probably start looking at moving on Smithies, moving on Hoskins, and potentially moving on Tamale. Just to better options there and running with maybe Tarpany and Hudson from the Raiders mostly.
And captain options this week, obviously we've picked Ryan Papadazza as our vice, and then you could go with your captaincy option. Games you want to target, maybe other players you want to target. So Ryan Papadazza, as just discussed there, a great little captaincy option for people out there want to go a vice captain option on him or whatever. Cam Munster, does he open up that, or do you reckon he'll be a little bit tired from Origin?
No, I wouldn't touch Munster this week. I reckon he'd be in for a big one, but I wouldn't touch him.
Moving over to other games, you got the Cowboys versus West Tigers. You got Scotty Drinkwater. The Tigers, Terrell May, just a safe option to plug in there.
Safe option, and his workload will be up again, wanting to prove that he is in the fold for Origin, and he's coming up against Cotter, Nanai, those guys backing up that might be a bit fatigued. So,
yep. Other games of the weekend, you got the Dragons and Knights. There's not too many plays there. Not too many people still have Clint Gutherson, Kalen Ponga. It's still just not happening for him there this year. Fletcher Sharp. Would you, it wouldn't even be looking at an option like a Dylan Lucas vice captain and have like a Party captain. It's very risky. Other games, Manly Seagulls versus the Broncos. Any options in that matchup there?
Potentially Payne Haas, I guess, but again, not after Origin. I wouldn't risk it.
Every other game is looking pretty tight. Like you got the Warriors versus the Rabbits. That's probably going to be more of a low-scoring affair. Very defensive, in my opinion. Penrith Panthers versus Parramatta. Yeah, Teddy against the Raiders.
Just work rate he's going to have to do on kick returns, and then Canberra's edges can be very fragile. We proved that, so Teddy could get really amongst it.
Yep. There's not too many other options I can think of at the top of my head, bro. Any other options you got on the top of your head? I think that's pretty much a go.
Tarpany, maybe. And that's about it.
So number one, we'll probably go Ryan Papenhuyzen is probably the best look for this weekend.
Yeah.
Maybe around Scotty Drinkwater. Yep. Then looking at your safe options of Terrell May, Payne Haas, Tarpany.
Yeah. I agree.
Right. Sweet. All right, guys. I think we might end it off there, but thank you so much, guys, everyone tuning in. Anything more you want to touch on before you jet off?
Nah, that's all, brother. That's all.
And shout out to Jesse Yappa. Watch NRL Rugby live. Yes.
Will do, bro.
All right, my brother. Have a good weekend, guys. Have a good night with your Origin footy. One more Origin game, the Women's Origin tonight, guys. Make sure you go tune in, support the girls. And also, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, enjoy your weekend of footy.
Chris.
Love the banter. Up the bars, baby. Enjoy your weekend. Take it easy.
Later.